We call some moments coincidences because we cannot find a different word. Two situations coming together, an unexpected convergence, a message arriving just as you were about to give up, a phone ringing at a completely unplanned moment, and most of the time we dismiss it with a single sentence. What a coincidence! This sentence is comfortable. It does not question. It does not require detail. But does something we call coincidence really exist? Or is this word only a way to silence the things we cannot perceive? In a coin toss, the result appears random. The coin is thrown into the air, it spins, it falls to the ground, and we wait to see the outcome. But depending on how the coin was thrown, the angle at which it rotated, how much speed it gained, how air resistance affected it, the outcome is determined accordingly. So the result was determined long before the coin touched the ground, but we cannot calculate it. There are too many variables: speed, angle, weight, friction, air. It is impossible to measure them all at the same time. That is why we call the event random. But randomness, in most cases, is simply another name for ignorance. The same is true when a die is thrown. The force of the hand, the angle of the fingers, the edges of the die, the surface of the table, the ground. Each one affects the result. But because we cannot control all of these variables, we accept the outcome as uncertain. Yet the outcome is not uncertain. What is uncertain is our knowledge. That is why randomness is not a property of nature, but a limitation of the human mind. In a city, millions of people exist. Each of them makes hundreds of choices every day. They turn right, they walk left, they stop at a bus stop, they enter a market. Each of these choices intersects with another choice, and when one of these intersections happens, we call it a coincidence. Two people being in the same place at the same time. Yet as a city grows, as the number of people increases, the number of possibilities increases as well. When large numbers come into play, the things we call impossible become possible. If enough trials are made, even the event with the lowest probability will eventually occur. That is why someone wins the lottery. That is why two people with the same surname sit next to each other on the same subway. That is why someone you haven't seen in a long time appears in front of you at the moment you least expect. We call this fate, or luck, or coincidence. But for mathematics, this is simply a result. The human brain struggles to accept this picture. The idea of randomness is unsettling, because randomness means a lack of control. And a lack of control creates a sense of meaninglessness. That is why we search for a reason in every situation, a connection, a story. We turn coincidences into narratives. It had to happen, we say. There must have been a reason, we say. It wasn't for nothing, we say. These sentences are comfortable, because they make the universe feel more meaningful. But sometimes the universe is far from meaning. Sometimes behind what happens, there is no special reason. There is only statistics. And sometimes the opposite occurs. Some situations emerge from chains so complex that it is impossible to point to a single starting point. One decision creates another decision. That decision creates another possibility. That possibility creates another outcome. And at some point the line between cause and effect disappears. Everything is connected. But nothing can explain everything on its own. At this point, the word coincidence does not point to randomness, but to the place where we stop looking. Because we cannot understand, we call it random. But as what we know increases, the space we call coincidence shrinks. Still, it never disappears completely. Because knowledge is not infinite, the human mind has limits. It cannot see every situation at once. It cannot calculate every variable. That is why coincidence does not happen in nature, it happens in the mind. What about the quantum world? According to some physicists, some events are truly random, where a particle will be found, or in which direction it will move, cannot be calculated in advance. At this point, coincidence seems to arise not from a lack of knowledge, but from nature itself. But even this is debated. Because this randomness exists at a microscopic scale, it does not directly translate into everyday life. In the world we live in, causes and effects still apply, but we cannot see every cause, and where we cannot see, coincidence begins. Perhaps the real problem is this: we are beings who want to see meaning. We want every event to carry a message, every encounter to be a sign. But the universe has no such obligation. The universe does not explain. It does not comfort. It does not offer meaning. Things simply happen. And we try to make sense of what happens. What we call coincidence may be exactly this: the point where our need to create meaning intersects with the limits of our knowledge. So this question still remains. If everything is tied to a cause, and every cause is formed by another cause, is there truly even a single thing that is random? Or is what we call coincidence simply the point where we stop looking?